welcome back to the Crypto Dave YouTube channel. It's Friday afternoon, which means another weekly crypto roundup video. Now, it's going to be a little bit of a shorter video than normal this week because, one, I've been very busy with other stuff, haven't really had a chance to go into detail about many kind of stories, but also it's absolutely scalding hot in the UK here. There's building work going on outside, so I've had to close all the windows, and it's just really absolutely baking here in the office. So I don't want to spend too long making this video, but let's have a quick glance at the markets. As we can see here, market cap, total market cap 288 billion. That's up probably about 5 billion from last week, so very broadly similar. Now, after last week's video, we had a little dip down, I think later the day after I did the kind of video, and then we've had this nice run up until this morning, and then the news came out about the Winklevoss's ETF being denied, and we had this kind of pullback. So we've had this kind of pullback today. So the end result of that is that basically everything kind of down today a bit, but everything is basically roughly back to where it was a week ago. So the crypto market's fractionally up overall, but not any big swings really. If we look at coin checkup, so we can have a look at these kind of graphs, the green graphs. In the top 20, we've only got a few coins that are actually in the green for this week. So Bitcoin's had another decent enough week, 6% up. Stellar's had a decent week. And then if we scroll a little bit further down the list, you can see here we've got VeChain and Binance. Both had really good weeks. VeChain in particular, fantastic week, up 40%. Binance back to its strong performances that we saw up until a couple of weeks ago. And then just outside the top 20, we've got Zcash up 10%. We scroll further down, you can see there's a few coins that have done quite well. And a little bit of red as well, but the sort of like the movement up and down hasn't been massively dramatic. Far bigger movements in the last 24 hours than the last 7 days. You can see here Ethereum basically where it was a week ago, Ripple down a couple of percent, Bitcoin Cash no real change, EOS. So a lot of these, you know, literally single figure up and down. Cardano's not had a good week. Dash as well at the bottom here. Sorry. Over scrolled that. Here down 13% after a really good week last week. So Dash down, losing some of its gains from last week. Neo down 5%. But in general, relatively kind of flat this week. We've had that nice kind of run up, and then, you know, a lot of those kind of gains being counteracted by this kind of pullback in the last day. And Bitcoin dominance 47%, as I said, we're up about 5 billion, but no massive changes there. So let's jump over to the first story, and that's Hashflare. So Hashflare is a cloud mining company, and a few days ago, about 5 or 6 days ago, they cancelled all of their SHA-256. So these were all their Bitcoin mining kind of contracts. Now, those of you who have followed my channel for a while know that I have been doing a cloud mining experiment with contracts on both Hashflare and Genesis Mining. I will do an update probably next week or the week after, sort of like a final update really with Hashflare, but also showing you what's happening with Genesis at the kind of same time. So basically, the Hashflare contracts, they charge quite a lot for maintenance, which is basically kind of maintenance and electricity costs are quite high. You pay X amount in US dollars per terahash of mining power that you actually had in the contract with them. The contracts for Hashflare were all 1 year, so a lot of people have missed out, have lost out quite a lot in terms of, you know, the contracts being wrapped up. I think I've probably lost 4 or 5 months worth of mining. I think my Hashflare, off the top of my head, went live last December. But basically, we've had like a month where there's been no payments coming in, where the costs have been outstripped. Sorry, the costs have outstripped the income from kind of mining. What has annoyed a lot of people in the community, and there's been quite a big backlash, is that they cancelled basically the contracts just as Bitcoin started to increase in price again. We had a dip in Bitcoin difficulty and an increase in price. So if they had allowed the contracts to run for another maybe 1 or 2 days, they would have been back in profit and everybody would have been back onto another 28-day cycle. But in their contracts, it does say that if no money is going to be made for a prolonged period, is it 28 consecutive days, then they can cancel the contracts, and this is what they did. So this is clause 5.5, which they enacted. The mining process continues until said mining is profitable. I mean, I think that means unprofitable. This means the mining process will stop if the maintenance and electricity fees will become larger than the payout. If mining remains unprofitable for 21 consecutive days, the service is permanently terminated. And that's what happened. Now, as I said, there's been quite a big backlash. There's a really good article about the whole kind of situation here. Now, this was only published a few hours ago, but it's a really nice roundup. Now it's a few days later about what happened with Hashflare, about cloud mining in general, what kind of impact this will have on other providers. So will Genesis Mining have like a kind of a peak as kind of people move over to it, or will it kind of like irrevocably damage cloud mining? But it's a really good thought-provoking piece. It's a well worth a read. I'll put the links obviously below as always. But yeah, it's disappointing news for anybody with a Hashflare contract. So that has been wrapped up. As I said, quite a lot of backlash from the community. People pointing out that if it had run for a few more days, then mining would have been back profitable, and nobody thinks that they've switched off their kind of hardware. They a lot of people just thinking, well, they've got to the kind of point where it looks like Bitcoin price is going to start going up dramatically. They will be profitable again, so let's cancel the kind of the contracts now. They've got all the money up front, and then they can kind of mine themselves and take the proceeds. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any kind of backlash, any potential kind of legal kind of challenges or anything like that to it. But anyway, let's jump over to the next story. So the next story we're going to talk about is Fortune magazine. So they've released a first ever crypto focused 40 under 40. So the 40 under 40 is a well-known piece that they do within kind of traditional kind of industries, within traditional kind of business people and stuff like that, and entrepreneurs. But they've launched for the first time ever a crypto-focused one, which is quite interesting. The actual article is here. I'll put all these links below. So you see here we've got Brian Armstrong at number one. He's the CEO of Coinbase. You've got Vitalik Buterin, who obviously is the founder of Ethereum, and then you've got Jihan Wu from Bitmain, various other kind of people, some of them that you may not have come across before. There's names on this list and people on this list that I hadn't kind of come across, didn't know exactly what they were doing, but it's quite an interesting piece, well worth having a little read through. There's an article about it on Cointelegraph, and then as I said, the actual article is on Fortune's site here, fortune.com/the ledger 40 under 40. But anyway, the links for that will be below. Have a look if you're kind of interested. It's well worth having a browse through and seeing what some of these people are doing. But let's jump over to the last story, and that is here, and it's the Winklevoss twins. So they obviously appeared on the Ledger 40 under 40 crypto one, and their ETF was rejected today or last night, whenever it was, by the SEC. Now this obviously had a bit of an impact on the kind of markets. Everything dropped a bit today on the back of this, but it's not necessarily as bad news as some people kind of thought. They put the ETF in initially the end of last year. It was rejected. I think they then kind of appealed. It's been rejected again today. It doesn't necessarily follow that other ETFs are going to be kind of rejected. I think the one that most people are quite positive about at the moment is due to have, I think one of the dates is middle of August, maybe 16th of August off the top of my head, when they will either accept or kind of decline it, or they can kind of push it back for a bit more time, which I think is probably what they will end up doing. But yeah, it was kind of interesting that this was rejected. I don't think that many people would be surprised. It's a shame, because I think it will only take kind of one to be approved until you get kind of a lot of them kind of being approved, particularly within Bitcoin, maybe slightly longer for certain other currencies and for sort of like broad ranging kind of ETFs. But there were some kind of reasons behind it. A lot of people think it was down to the fact that the Winklevoss twins want to use Gemini as the pricing sort of kind of agent for the kind of ETF, and that because they own the Gemini, obviously Gemini, it would allow them potentially to kind of manipulate kind of prices and stuff like that. So there were some sort of competing arguments about why it wasn't approved. There was one woman who was very bullish on the kind of panel. She came out on Twitter saying that she thought it should have been approved, and there was a Reddit campaign earlier today on the cryptocurrency subreddit to give her some kind of Twitter love, give her some more followings, and retweet some of the stuff she kind of she posted. So I think it'll be probably middle of August till we get a little bit more of an idea about a slightly stronger ETF, whether it will be approved. I think they will probably kick it a little bit into the kind of long grass to give themselves a bit more time to kind of think about some of these kind of things. But really, I think it's only a matter of time. It only takes one to be kind of approved, and I think once you've got some big institutions behind some of these ETFs, or people kind of like pushing for ETF kind of approval, I think one will get approved. I think potentially later this year. But I mean, who knows? The SEC does move pretty slowly, but I think that, there's a reasonable kind of chance we'll get an ETF approved later this year, maybe in the fourth quarter. So we shall see next month. So a little bit disappointing news there. It did have an impact on the prices. You can see prices down as we looked at the beginning across the board. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thanks very much for watching. As always, let me know your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. If there's anything you want me to cover next week, mention it below. If you have any questions about anything I've talked about today, please leave me a comment. If you give me a thumbs up, that would be great. It helps other people find not just this video but the channel in general, so that would be great. But that's it for this week. Have a fantastic weekend. I will see you hopefully on the next video. Take care. Bye bye.